Podcast Media Podcast Network.
I'm podcasting in my car. Vroom, vroom. Well, despite the tough setup I'm working with right now, I have some news for you. James Dobson is dead. Let's get into this bloody thing.
A national religious leader has died. Dr. James Dobson founded Focus on the Family back in 1977. He was 89 years old. His organization grew into a conservative political force in the 80s, campaigning against abortion and gay rights. He also started a national radio show on parenting that is carried by 1,500 stations. Friends are remembering him as a pioneer in family counseling and pushing conservative Christians into the political mainstream.
Good evening, demons and demons. This is Kwame Wahkan here. I know I'm just getting off of work. I would do this in the studio, but unfortunately, I'm doing some work right now in there. I know it seems like every few months I'm doing some work in the studio. I think it's because I'm always just so busy. And also because I'm always on the move. So I'm like, you know what, since I'm always on the move, might as well just get me up like some couple of new microphones and stuff. I just found out that two of the mics that I was using, both my dynamic and my condenser microphones, can be used on an Android device. Right now I'm using the Galaxy 22 Ultra. Let me show you guys the equipment I'm working with right now. This is my condenser microphone right here. I know I'm probably fucking up the audio by, twirling it around. And I have my dynamic microphone right here. This is the Fi-Fi AM8. I use this, like if I'm in a loud environment, that way it doesn't pick up any background sounds. But I'm like, you know what, I'm going to use my condenser this time and do some post-processing afterwards. But let me just get back on topic. Now, if you guys grew up, in a Christian family like I did, one of the things that Christians tend to do is, go to Chick-fil-A on a regular basis. And, I was raised as a Chick-fil-A lad myself. Like on the weekends, my nana would take me to Chick-fil-A and always get like the sandwich or the kids' meal and whatnot. And whenever you get the kids' meal, they would always include like a biblical-based toy, whether it be Adventures in Odyssey, and I think there was another series. I'm blanking on the name, but it was another Christian cartoon series, and they also had a Christian book series there. So I would get books, I would get the little cassette tapes, and they would read you like biblical lessons, stuff that you would learn while growing up. Now, all of these toys and media, literature, all of that was provided by a group called Focus on the Family, which partnered with Chick-fil-A. Now, what does Focus on the Family have to do with all this? Well, Focus on the Family was headed by a guy named Dr. James Dobson. Now, for those that don't know much about Dr. Dobson, he was born in Louisiana, so like the deep, deep South, Bible Belt family. I think his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather were all pastors, all active within the church and whatnot. When he went to college, he decided to major in psychology. So he got his doctorate there, and that's why he has the title Dr. Dobson. Now, throughout his career, one of the things that he mainly advocated for was for the nuclear family, the traditional family, a husband, a wife, a kid, a white picket fence, a house, that type of shit.
Psychologist Dr. James Dobson has been called one of the most influential evangelical leaders of our time, devoting his life and ministry to preserving the family. In 1977, he began the radio program Focus on the Family on 34 Christian stations. It eventually grew to 7,000 stations in 150 countries, and at its peak reached 220 million people each day. Dobson also wrote numerous bestsellers, including Dare to Discipline and What Wives Wish Their Husbands Knew About Women.
But another thing that he was mainly big on is corporal punishment. So he wrote several books about how to punish kids, how to, beat them. And one of the excerpts from one of his books, I wish I had the quote with me right now, but he started off by doing this to, you're not going to believe this, puppies. He adopted a puppy, and when he didn't like the way that the puppy behaved, he then pulled out a belt and started beating the puppy with it, which kind of doesn't make much sense now, does it? And his whole thing is, if the puppy learns to fear you, then, they're going to know how to act when they're around you. And then he tried to use this as an analogy to, say, hey, this is how your kids should view you, which is kind of, a cruel thing to do. And, especially for, a guy who claims to be a Christian. And that's the funny thing that I've noticed about Christians as of lately. Why is it all these stories I hear about Christians, they're always abusing small animals? That's the funny thing, every time, as a Satanist, they always say, Satanists like to abuse animals, Satanists like to sacrifice animals. But how many stories have we heard of Christians abusing animals? You have Christy Nome, who shot and killed her dog. And then you have Dr. Dobson admitting in his own book that he beat and tortured a puppy because he didn't like the fact that it misbehaved. Now, I have a daughter myself, or we used to, but when she was with me, I've never even thought about doing some shit like that. There's ways to punish people without laying your hands on them or without bruising them or doing any physical sort of activity to them. And what part of that do people not understand these days, And as somebody that was, hit with a belt when I was a wee lad, let me just tell you, shit ain't fun. But that's only one part of the controversy. Focus on the Family has been known for doing a lot of things behind closed doors. Advocating for, conversion therapy and ex-gay ministry and shit like that. Another thing they've done is they created several, associated groups, one of them being the Family Research Council, the other one being the American Family Association. Now, when it comes to these conservative groups, whenever you hear the word family being used, what they mean is, your traditional nuclear white family. So you have the wife, the husband, the kids, no gays, no interracial couples, nothing like that. So, and both the American Family Association and the Family Research Council are notorious for spreading, hatred and misinformation about members of the LGBTQ community. In fact, their tactics have been labeled so extreme that the Southern Poverty Law Center has labeled both of them as active hate groups. So, take what you want from that.
He also started the influential Family Research Council and served as an advisor to 5 U.S. presidents, including Ronald Reagan.
He said, I want you to tell me what I can do to strengthen the family. I said, why not a family impact study commission?
After more than 30 years at Focus on the Family, Dobson left in 2009.
There were philosophical differences, and it was obvious that I saw things a little differently than the person who was my successor.
He began a new nationally syndicated show called Family Talk.
You cannot have a strong country without strong families. That's the next generation.
Dobson also brought his family message to the 700 Club many times.
Pat, all of those traditional views are under attack today. And everything that we have believed about the family for thousands of years, literally, is being questioned now and being undermined. And there is a real danger that the family will disintegrate.
Almost every day, things are coming out of Washington that assault righteousness, standards of righteousness, and assault the family.
Then you have the fact that all three of these groups have close connections with Exodus International. Now, for those that don't know anything about Exodus International, it used to be an ex-gay ministry group.
It's called Love One Out. This Christian conference presents the concept that gays and lesbians can be shown how to walk away from homosexuality. Organizers say they want to help people respond compassionately to family members who are gay.
We're offering hope as well, that there are men and women here who, like us, want to overcome homosexuality, and so we're offering hope to them.
Outside the conference in Phoenix, dozens gathered to protest the Love One Out conference. The name of their organization, Truth Wins Out.
Homosexuality is not a sin. It's not a sickness. Every respected medical and mental health organization in the country says people are fine just the way they are as gay.
The Love One Out conference featured speakers who say they've walked away from being gay.
I'm not denying who I really am because I believe this is who God created me to be. And I believe that as a gay man, I was denying the truth that I could live beyond that. I only heard that homosexuality was my option.
This is an elaborate attempt to confuse Americans into thinking homosexuality is a choice, because if people believe it's a choice, they're more likely to vote against gay rights.
But it was disbanded a couple of years ago, and the leader of the group, so literally the guy that created this group, had admitted that it's all pseudoscience, it's junk science, it's quackery. And on top of that, the cherry on top of the sundae, the man admitted that he's still gay. Even though he has a wife and kids, he admits he's still attracted to men.
As we reported earlier this week, the Christian ministry Exodus International is closing its doors. Exodus tried to help gay men and women through what's known as reparative therapy, which holds that sexual orientation can be changed with God's help. In an announcement on its website, Exodus President Alan Chambers apologized for promoting reparative therapy. The statement says in part, "I am sorry for the pain and hurt many of you have experienced. I am sorry that some of you spent years working through the shame and guilt you felt when your attractions didn't change."
I think there's an interview he did on, I'm not sure if it was MSNBC or if it was CNN or maybe it was Anderson Cooper or something like that. But he apologized. He said, yeah, it's all fake. It's all it's pseudoscience. None of this stuff even works.
Can you explain what you are apologizing for? What are you sorry about?
Well, we're sorry for the many people who took part in the ministries or the counselors or were impacted by the rhetoric, frankly, of leaders, and including myself, over the years that caused shame and hurt and promises, whether they were intentional or not, of promising that orientation would change and that they could expect something that they didn't come to receive. And so that's something that we're very, very sorry for, the hurt and the shame and the anxiety and the trauma that people were caused.
I got to say, and I give you props for this, it's rare that anybody in public life changes their mind and then publicly acknowledges it and actually says the word "I'm sorry" as opposed to like, well, I misspoke or something. Why now?
Well, you know, it's been a long thing coming. Certainly coming to terms with issues in our own life. You know, I came to Exodus as a 19-year-old kid in 1991, and it wasn't until 2006 that I even admitted publicly that I still had same-sex attractions, that those things hadn't changed for me. And, you know, listening to people's stories and hearing them say they felt we promised them something, that we did promise them something, that we did promote something that hurt them, that's something we couldn't help but apologize for and feel very, very sorry about.
In one of the apologies I read, you put on your website, and it's titled "I'm sorry." And I want to read part of it. "I'm sorry that so many have interpreted this religious rejection by Christians as God's rejection. I am profoundly sorry that many have walked away from their faith and that some have chosen to end their lives." Do you believe that the teachings of Exodus are responsible for people's deaths?
You know, I believe that there are vulnerable people out there who are in a state of anxiety over their feelings and the things that they cannot change, and they look to Exodus and they look to religion and to the church to offer them help. And when we have told them that they should feel ashamed or that they should try to change these things that we have realized we cannot change. I believe that causes all sorts of trauma. And I know that there are people who have taken their life because they felt so ashamed of who they are, felt like God couldn't love them as they are. And that's something that will haunt me until the day I die.
Do you now believe that it's possible to change your sexual orientation?
No, I don't.
But do you consider yourself? I mean, you are married. Do you and you've said you still have same-sex attractions, which you work on resisting. Do you consider yourself gay?
I think we're so apt in our culture to put sexual labels on ourselves that really are secondary at best to who we are. For me, I do have same-sex attractions, but I also have an exclusive attraction to my wife. In 16 years almost of marriage, I've never been tempted to be unfaithful to her. That doesn't mean that I don't experience same-sex attraction.
And the sad thing is that, this administration actively believes in this junk pseudoscience. It's already bad enough we have this guy RFK pushing people to, swim in, toxic rivers and, drink raw milk, even though it's been proven that raw milk has more bacteria in it. Now, I've had so many people, message me telling me, "Oh, Kwame, you shouldn't speak ill of the dead." But my thing is this. We're talking about a cruel, heartless man who spent his entire career trying to make gay people feel like shit, who tried to push, the parents to abuse their children. And you're telling me that I should feel sorry for this lad? I don't feel sorry for him. In fact, I think the world is a lot better place that this lad isn't in it anymore. And the sad thing is that you still have people out there that believe in the same poison that this lad was teaching them. And they're probably still doing these things to the next generation of children, beating them with belts, telling them that they're going to go to hell simply because of how they identify and because of who they are. My thing about James Dobson, I'm going to make this quick. Fuck James Dobson. Fuck everything that this lad stood for. And it's a pity that there isn't a hell for this guy to burn into. And I hope that everything that Focus on the Family stood for dies along with him. I will say this, the ancestors have been on a roll lately. I mean, we lost Anita Bryant this year, and I didn't even do a video on Anita Bryant because, time constraints. But for those who don't know who Anita Bryant was, she was basically one of the most homophobic people in the 1970s. So just imagine libs of TikTok, but without, social media and stuff like that.
Anita Bryant, Miss Oklahoma.
Sometimes you have to pay a price for what you believe is right.
Singer Anita Bryant believes she was right when 13 years ago, as a Florida mother, she organized a movement to prevent homosexuals from becoming teachers in her community. Bryant drew attention with statements like, quote, "Gays can't reproduce, they have to recruit," end of quote.
Just biologically that God made mothers so that we could reproduce. Homosexuals cannot reproduce biologically, but they have to reproduce by recruiting our children.
And she made an entire career, preaching to, evangelicals, telling them about the horrors of homosexuality. And she was so extreme to the point where a lot of people eventually ended up hating her for it.
Security agent.
No, let him stay.
No.
Let him stay.
Well, at least it's a fruit pie.
3 years of emotional controversy and 3 votes later, Anita Bryant's anti-gay cause went down to defeat. During those 3 years, her personal life crumbled and her career was virtually destroyed. But her fight with the gay community had the wrong effect, according to the man who led the opposition.
She gave us every access to world media. We had over 50,000 news clippings. This is the turning point where gay became a household word, and we opened up the entire debate on human sexuality.
Even as her public image was being tarnished by the anti-gay campaign, she was devastated by personal problems. Her 20-year marriage was ending in divorce.
She became a national symbol of bigotry, and so did now ex-husband Bob Green.
We were guilty of saying stupid things because we were just stupid performers.
Green lives alone in Miami Beach, long divorced from Anita Bryant. The bitter gay rights fight, he says, ended their marriage and destroyed her career.
It ended in a matter of days. They put her completely out of business.
As her career crumbled in 1978, I covered Green and Bryant as they tried to save it.
Are you being blackballed?
Well, it looks that way. It's worse than that. We're being threatened, and there's all kinds of harassment, even with my job with Florida Citrus.
Ironically, while the gay rights controversy ruined Green's and Bryant's lives, it directly led to gays having more rights and opportunities than ever.
The gays now are so successful. What we did wrong was got into it in the first place. You know, everybody said God needs you, Anita, and her heart was right. And she jumped into it with both feet. But God doesn't really need us.
Now, there was this one interview where she was, giving a press conference, and a gay man walks up with a banana cream pie, throws it right in her face, and she says she wanted to pray for him. Then she felt bad, and she started crying, whatnot, because of how embarrassed she was.
To gays everywhere, she became an overwhelming symbol of condemnation of their lifestyle, and they struck back at her in more ways than one.
Security agent.
No, let him stay.
No.
Let him stay.
Well, at least it's a fruit pie.
And the irony is that years later along the line, when she had grandchildren, one of her grandchildren eventually came out as gay.
Anita, suppose one of your children came to you, or suppose you found out in some way that one of your children was a homosexual. What would you do? Well, first of all, I would love them and not disown them, because they're my children. And I would tell them that God loves them, and that I love them very much. And I would try to deal with that problem in the light that God does, that He loves us as sinners, that He hates our sin, and that He cannot abide by sin. He cannot tolerate sin in our lives.
I will say, truth is stranger than fiction. You spent all those years, bashing queer people, only for your own granddaughter to come out as queer herself. Then a couple months ago, the leader of the Heritage Foundation, which is another, I think it's a conservative political action committee or think tank or whatever the hell the Heritage Foundation is, the same group that wrote Project 2025. Apparently, their founder also died. And now we have James Dobson. So the ancestors up there, if they're listening, if they can listen, well, you guys are doing a good job. Keep up the good work. And I think Queen said it best. Another one bites the dust. Bye-bye, James Dobson. You won't be missed. That's all I have to say about this. Stay safe, stay metal, hail Satan, have a gay fucking day.